Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rewind and Replay. I am Matan here with good friend of the show, Merrick.
Yeah,
How's it going, Merrick?
it's going pretty well, all things considered.
All things considered. Yeah, that's the kind of the motto of 2020. Pretty
Yeah.
well, all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're here. This is the first episode of a new series we're doing on the Rewind and Replay channel. Don't have a name for it yet. We'll get one for the next one. But at this time, we're discussing a game or a game series that one person is really not a fan of and the other person is a big fan of. So today, as you could tell by the thumbnail and the title, we're talking about Dark Souls. I have a lot of friends who love Dark Souls,
Mm-hmm.
and I could never get into it. It hasn't clicked.
Yeah.
For a little bit of background information, I have played Dark Souls 1. I not all the way. I got through the Capra Demon, and
Mm-hmm.
I probably put in 20-30 hours. And then Dark Souls 3, I haven't gotten very far. I've got to the second bonfire. What is it? The High Wall of
High Wall
Lothric?
of Lothric. Yeah.
Okay. And the last time I died, I got killed by the guy who turns into the big monster. He just looks like a normal enemy, and then he like sprouts
On the roof.
on the roof.
Okay. Yeah.
So what's your history with Dark Souls, Merrick?
So I was actually many years ago, I want to say in like 2015-ish. I was convinced that I would like never actually play anything in the series. And some Let's Players that I really liked at the time did a Let's Play of Dark Souls 2. And I was like, I always avoid Let's Plays of a game where I'm like even remotely considering playing it. But I was like, oh, I'm never gonna play a Dark Souls game. And I've always wondered what their whole deal is.
Right.
So I'll like watch this one. And by the end of it, I was like, I gotta play these games.
That's good.
So I went and played one and didn't actually beat it on my first time through, because while I was playing it, Dark Souls 3 came out and it just kind of like looked cooler.
Right.
And I had also taken a long enough it came out while I was taking a break from one anyways, from getting like not hard stuck, but I had just like spent a lot of time on a particular boss and was like, I don't want to go back to this for a little bit. And so then I ended up playing 3 and I loved it and played it all the way through. So I actually beat 3 first, and then I went back and beat 1, and then I beat the 2 sort of like re-release thing where they like change enemy placement and like did a bunch of extra content and
that's Scholar of the First Sin.
Yeah.
And then what about Bloodborne and Sekiro?
I have not played Bloodborne or Sekiro.
Okay.
I have not been a console gamer since I graduated college in 2011.
I understand. Now that I have a PC, I get it. I have Bloodborne. I have tried Bloodborne, and I had some of the same issues. The gameplay is different, but I had some of the same issues.
Yeah. So what are your like big issues with the series?
Let's get into it. Amount of retreading and backtracking. This is true in 3, but it's more true in 1. I actually I like Dark Souls 3 better than I like Dark Souls 1, like you. When I die and I need to run like 10 minutes back to the boss where I died, it's mind-numbing. I just like, because either you learn the enemy patterns, you learn their placements, it gets faster with each run. Yeah. But still, and really good players can just blast by enemies.
Sure. And I mean, we're not talking about Master Key. Right. In fact, for the sake of this discussion, assume, because I didn't do any of this, and I'm guessing you didn't either, and most people don't. We're not talking about doing any kind of weird level skips.
Right.
Like, oh, it turns out that this boss you can beat by throwing fire bombs over the fog wall because there's like a little gap.
Right.
Whatever. Just none of that. And like not any like, oh, you can get this really optimized weapon in this spot.
Right.
So that you have a really thing. Just playing it like a normal human being.
Right. So yes. So thank you for that distinction. I was stuck at the Abyssal Dragon. Is that a boss?
There's just the dragon that like breathes fire.
No, it's maybe the Abyssal Demon. It's really big and it'll like smash it down and you hit its head. It's in some like dungeons, and this is Dark Souls 1, and there are these like little froggy guys around who breathe poison on you.
Oh, okay. This isn't a boss? This isn't a boss fight, right?
There was a boss fight. I'm trying to remember the name. Anyway, so there was times with a boss where I would just like, part of the learning of Dark Souls. Gaping Dragon. Thank you. Gaping Dragon. Part of the issue is like when you're stuck on something, I just want to like keep learning. And that's what Dark Souls wants you to do, but they put huge barriers in for that. Like, how did you not, maybe you just died less than me, maybe you're just better than me, but like, did that not like bother
my
you?
First time, I can guarantee. I remember my old roommate at the time loves mentioning how he remembers leaving for like work. He had like a relatively short shift of like 3 hours or something. And I would be sitting in the chair in the living room fighting the wolf boss Sif, and then he would get back and I would be in the exact same position fighting like the same boss. And I had actually gone and done other stuff in the game in between, but from his perspective, I had just been like bashing my head against this thing for 3 hours. And he like looked to the door and he comes in and he just looks at me and he had this like expression of like, do we need to do like an intervention? Like, what is, I'm not sure if this is a cry for help or like what's happening here.
Yeah.
So no, I died a bunch of times on a lot of things. I will say that part of it is, and it regards to your earlier thing of mentioning about like the runs being mind numbing. For me, the just fighting things in Dark Souls is fun enough that I don't mind doing, like, it doesn't ever become grinding or mindless particularly. Like I still like I like kicking, like when you're initially, because it takes a while to become powerful enough that you can just kind of like breeze through enemies. Like they're still kind of dangerous even if you know their moves. Like you have to be paying a little bit of attention.
Definitely.
And while it's in that string, I like the sort of challenge of that and the like being mindful and trying to find the fastest way through situations and like, oh, what rooms can I just run through? What rooms do I actually have to stand and fight? And then when you get to the point where you can just kick the shit out of them, that is also fun.
Rewarding
if you end up stuck somewhere for long enough that happens.
I hear you.
For me personally, I'm curious, what class did you play one as? If you remember, or like, what was your character like?
Assassin, maybe.
So you were like kind of a speedy person. Were you using? Like...
I started with the dagger. And then I got a sword. But like that, if that helps you place what class I was, I started with the dagger, I believe. Yeah.
So you were, and then you got a sword. Were you using like a sword that was still relatively like close ranged and fast?
I think so. Yeah. I generally prefer quicker stuff to really heavy.
So and were you wearing armor that was like really light so that you could do like the fast roll, or were you still doing like the normal?
I was doing the second fastest roll.
Yeah. Okay. The one where that's the one that most people
right. So yes, those are my feelings on the backtracking that really bothered me. I do have a lot of respect for things that are really hard and let you keep throwing your head at them. Like, but to me, the example that I give as sort of a counterexample is Celeste. If you've played, I love Celeste.
I have not played Celeste, but I know of it. Yeah.
Okay, great game, very hard. But when you die, and I understand it's a less taxing game, so they can afford to do this. But you die, you just reset the room. It takes a couple seconds.
Right.
So
I mean, every level is just on the screen, right?
Right.
So it's like a classic platformer.
Right. So while I understand that it's not 1-to-1, like Dark Souls can't do that. I also like wish that it can still be punishing with like. It can still be punishing and challenging without making me waste so much time, is what I feel like. But I hear you that like it is rewarding. I have felt that it's rewarding when you learn like, oh, this guy comes out here, this guy comes out here, and you just know them and you just kick their ass. Let's talk about the world a little bit. I love the design of Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Some of those monsters, like the Udex, so cool.
Yeah. Gosh, I could. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about and has been talked about how good the like atmosphere. That is one thing I generally like. My hot take, like I told you before, is that I think 3 is the best of the trilogy. I will say that I actually think that the points in 1 where the atmosphere is strongest, it is stronger than it is in any of the other games. I think 3, and this actually applies to both to the gameplay and to the lore and pretty much everything else except for like the characterization, which is I think is the only point where 3 is straight out weaker. I think 3 is generally more consistent in basically every category, which is part of why I end up liking it more, and why I think you can really see the benefits of iteration that the studio had, because one of 1's issues is that like it has this whole, and what I feel like leads to a lot of the frustration is it has this whole like sort of tough but fair concept, or like brutally tough but like it's fair and you can do whatever. But there are a lot of like gotchas in 1, and also things that are like, this is like, there's certain the bed of chaos is the example that a lot of people will get, which is a boss that like if you are unlucky can kill you before you are done entering the room, because it casts fire geysers randomly, and it is possible for them to be concentrated in such a way that you just get deleted.
That's such Dark Souls shit. That's so Dark Souls.
And see, the thing is that like stuff like that. So there are things like that throughout the first game where it's sort of like they were going for something that I'm sure they in their hearts they meant it for it to be like a mean, tough but fair one, but like still there. But then they miscalculated or they didn't account for something, and it just ended up fucked. And 3 doesn't have any of those, and 1 has like just enough, especially if because of how open it is, and if you run into them at the wrong time, it's like, is this what this game is like? It's like, no, but you just rolled a bunch of snake eyes in a row as it happens.
Right. It's got that's funny that you say that. It's got a lot of, the games have some jank here and there. Like when I was fighting this guy was climbing up a ladder really slowly. He's almost his whole body was above the ladder, and I go to hit him and I clank on the ladder, and then he just pummels me, and I was like, fuck. But it's not as big a deal I've experienced in 3 as it was in 1. The game has such a hands-off approach, and I understand what they're going for. Like you said, that very like brutally tough but fair. Like, here's the game, figure it out, do your thing, go whichever way you want. But I often feel like that can be limiting. So I was stuck in Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 3 for so long because I just could not figure out where to go. And then I was like, oh, I just sit at the Firelink and click travel.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, I had no idea to do that. I was like climbing around in the dungeons thinking there was some way out. Or like in Dark Souls 1, I had this experience where there are a lot of different paths you can go, which I like. Yeah. But I'd go down one and I would just get absolutely destroyed. And like that happens a lot in Dark Souls. So I'd keep trying and I'd be like, oh, I just can't hit the ghosts because I don't have this item that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
And so then I tried to go a different way, and I had friends who tell me like, oh, like the first time you're supposed to go this way because these other ways you don't have everything, or they're punishing,
or you don't know how to, like if you're a speedrunner or something, you can go those other ways.
Right. Exactly. If you're on subsequent playthroughs, you can do it, but like it's hard because it's given this illusion of option. Well, it's not an illusion. They give you all these options, but then. And the game is supposed to be crushingly difficult, but some parts are more crushingly difficult than others, and it's hard to know which way to go. And so I end up throwing myself against this thing that I'm just not ready for.
Yeah, you get stuck in like you can get stuck in the wrong place.
Right.
And if you don't, and those are the things, all of the Souls-like games as well have this issue a lot, where it's like, you just have to be okay with just being like, I'll come back later.
Right. And then you have to like, go run around, find your other path, and that's okay. Yeah. But yeah, I spent a lot of time on bosses and on things that like, when I told my friends who love the games about them, they're like, oh, if you can't do that, there's an easier path. You just take a left here, go right here, and this is Blighttown. Or
and there's like all sorts of and there's all sorts of like secret ways of doing things. Right. Like, oh yeah, like the catacombs are really tough at the beginning, but if you get like a blessed weapon, the skeletons don't come back, and you can just and all this other shit. Like there's all kinds of weird tricks you can pull on things.
Totally.
Range from exploiting weaknesses like that to finding secret routes to even just like sort of basic tactical things of like, it turns out every enemy in this zone is really short range, so if you just get a spear, they're just like a little bit worse at dealing with you for the entire area or whatever.
Totally, and that's by design, but it's a double-edged sword because again, very rewarding. It fosters a really great community because it's so collaborative, like figuring it, communicating with friends, figuring out the best way to do things. But also, then there's people like me who are dumb and just like cannot get through this thing. It's, and on top of that, with all the stats as well, like when I open my menus, so many numbers, and that's just kind of a JRPG thing, but like.
But it's a weird to deal with it on top of everything else, basically, which is that's sort of like the entire, like any one aspect of it, like the navigation, the difficulty of the bosses, the like stat things, the obtuseness of the items, like all those things by themselves wouldn't be so bad, but dealing with them all at once is like
totally.
And that feeling is actually one of the, and arguably the biggest reason that I actually like it, and I think that a lot of other people like it also. I want to ask, did you play video games when you were like a real tiny child, like 6 to 8 years old?
Yeah, 6 to 8. I got my game. I had a Game Boy. I think I got at 6 or 7.
Okay. Did you like what games did you play that, like Donkey Kong?
Early on, Pokemon. I played a lot of Kirby. Kirby was big.
Okay. Yeah.
Some Mario games.
Right. Did you beat all of those when you
a
were
lot of
that
them?
age?
Zelda, I played a little bit of. My brother beat Zelda. I didn't beat Zelda, but
okay.
The other ones, I beat Pokemon. Why do you ask?
Okay. Because the thing is that I was thinking about was that for me, so a lot of video games, generally, like in broad strokes, once you learn kind of their core deal, you don't really ever have to relearn it, even for subsequent games in that genre. Like once you learn how to aim down the sights, once you learn how to save Phoenix Downs for the healer, once you learn how to like read depth perception in platformers and or whatever, you have that genre of games kind of like solved.
Yeah, and not that it can't be challenging, but like the basis is in your head forever. Totally.
And one of the things that I really liked about Dark Souls is that it returned me to being like 7 years old and not being able to like do or understand anything.
That's interesting.
In the game, and just sort of being constantly surprised and not just challenged, but like surprised and truly like, I don't know if I can beat this. I don't know just what I need to know how to do.
That's really interesting because as a child you don't understand a lot of the writing, you skip through a lot of the text boxes, and Dark Souls just forgoes those, and so it kind of puts you in a childlike sort of state. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it also tests skills that you have not. Like knowing how to aim down the sights doesn't help you in Dark Souls.
Right.
Knowing how to, like a bunch of JRPG and action RPG shit that other games in the genre, you learn them and you're fine. You go into Dark Souls and you're like, there's no map. There's no cutscenes telling me where to go. There's no NPCs telling me how to beat the thing that's in my way. Like what? And you have to like, it's a cool thing to me because it's sort of like you get to I really like learning how to do. There's a term called like games literacy, which is basically like referring to what I'm talking about, which is the like knowledge that it's everything from the basic knowledge of like common stuff of like how to aim down the sights and track or whatever. But it's also sort of like things that once you become a gamer, you kind of take for granted for knowing. Like there's always something behind the waterfall is a really good example.
Yes.
And Dark Souls, like you can be like, you can like think that you're good at games, and Dark Souls will be like, you are good at some games that you have played a lot of already, and a lot of different types of, but you are not good at all games. Nobody
starts good at Dark Souls.
Yeah. And you can become good at Souls likes. They have their own thing. It's mostly dodge rolling and parrying.
Right.
But you get good at those, and you kind of again end up having the genre, and reading item descriptions, you end up having the genre kind of solved.
Sorry, go ahead.
Being in that position, I find the novelty and the challenge of it, and just the wonder of like being like, I'm lost in this forest. I don't know how to get out of here.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm going to find out how to get out of here, or if I'm just gonna have to die and like find or whatever. It's like an experience that I have not had in video games really before or since, not outside of like Souls games and Souls like games, and when I was like a kid and couldn't really like grok the games that I was playing.
Sure. Yeah, I hear you. Like the wonder, there is a lot of wonder in Dark Souls. The scale of things is incredible. You go to some really cool locations. I think for me, I get that wonder, and then it fades because I get to a point where like I've tried everything that I can think of. And then I'm like, do I have to look this up? Am I going to keep walking around? Like I get to a point where it becomes too much.
And if you're also not really, like I said, like if you're not enjoying the combat enough so that a 10-minute run through a bunch of goobers is at least like kind of enjoyable, like that's going to be, that I think is the big thing. Like you need to find, and it is one of the cool things about the game is that there's like a million ways to play it.
Right.
But that also means that like with the navigational thing, you can pick wrong for you. and not realize how to adjust basically. My friend was playing through as like a roguish, it wasn't the thief, which I think it sounds like is what you started. They played the wanderer, which is like the dual sword class, and they got to the Capra demon and like could not beat it. Trying and so he actually restarted the entire game as a knight because he felt like what he was lacking was the ability to effectively like block and put up a good defense and stuff. And he beat the Capra demon on his second try with that character when he got his way back there. And it's like, okay, so basically the wanderer class, while it is very cool, it doesn't do what like I need to do to be able to engage with this game and its systems, essentially.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of that, but like I said, it's hard to tell if like, do I need to start over as another class? Do I just need to like rearrange my equipment? Do I need to find an NPC and start learning some magic? Like what is actually the play basically?
Because a lot of it is just because so little is told to you, it's hard to know what adjustments to make. For sure. But I liked Dark Souls 3 more than I thought I would. I'm gonna give it a little bit more time after this. I played it for this video, but I'm gonna keep going at least a little bit.
Yeah, I would strongly recommend the level after this is that game's equivalent to the Undead Burg, I would say, which is the Undead Settlement.
Yeah. And
that level is probably the second, much like in my opinion, Undead Burg is the best level in Dark Souls 1. And because it sort of shows you, it's like a little capsule of a little bit of everything the game's going to throw at you for like the rest of it.
Cool.
And in a lot of like sort of and it's separated into kind of discrete encounters. And Undead Settlement is very much like that also. I feel like it's like the third best level in the game. So I would go through Undead Settlement at the very least for sure.
Okay. That's good to know. I will get through that at least.
Yeah. And the boss at the end of the high wall is also a pretty cool one. Another great design of all of them. I mean, like almost everything has cool design.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Merrick. I appreciate it. I appreciate your expertise. Yes.
Yeah, my ability to just bloviate endlessly about this particular genre.
I feel like every Dark Souls fan can, though. Like, if you like Dark Souls, you love Dark Souls.
That does seem to be the case. And though you might love it for different reasons. Like, for example, I know a lot of people love it for the sort of the fact that you can be very rude to people in PvP.
Yeah. And there's we didn't even get into the multiplayer. There's all sorts of stuff to talk about there.
I do want to relate one funny anecdote about the Dark Souls 1 multiplayer. There's one of the multiplayer, like, you know how there's the Covenant, the factions essentially that you can join. One of them in Dark Souls 1, its gimmick is that rather than matchmaking you normally, you put on a ring. And while you have the ring, at any time when a human player goes through this particular forest area, you can be summoned in to invade them. So you don't have to like queue it up yourself. It's an auto matchmaking thing. And multiple other people in that faction can join you as well. And so I was doing a bunch of that one night. And one of and I kept on running into this one other person in the Covenant who would join me in my like fights, basically. So we were teaming up on people regularly. And after the second or third one, I got this message on Steam that was like, "Are you playing Dark Souls right now?" And it turns out that it was one of my friends who was like, in Dark Souls, your player name is different from your Steam name.
Yeah.
But like they were also like just randomly
How
doing
funny.
invasions in that at the same time.
That's so
and
funny.
I
Wow.
just happened to keep getting matchmade with them. I was like, oh my God. And it was someone who I hadn't like talked to in a really long time too.
Yeah.
So it was also an extra just like, oh, what's up?
Yeah.
And then we continued to be very mean to people we outnumbered in a terrible forest.
Yep. That's very funny. Yeah, Dark Souls, that's very interesting. Like, yeah, the whole summoning mechanic and the whole the like unspoken rules about dueling, about not using Estus and it's all very interesting.
I guess stories like that is probably one of the other that's probably actually the biggest reason that I like the Dark Souls games, is that one of the advantages to all of the different weird ways that it combines in and everything is that like everyone who plays through those games gets a number of stories that they can tell that are not like anything you're going to hear in any other kind of game. Because there's so many different weird, unique variables that can interact in all these weird, unique ways that you're just going to get like craziness, basically. I think it's the same. It's also true of certain games like Skyrim and stuff, I think, as well.
Everybody has their own Skyrim stories. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you very much for coming. We're hoping to put out more of this series. We have a bunch of different games to show. Whatever it's called. It's going to be, games people have never even heard of, games people just totally hate. As I've mentioned, I'm not a fan of Ocarina of Time, so I'm sure we're going to do an episode about that, because I've been basically crucified for it. Thank you very much for watching, and we will catch you next time.